Alright, so I'm going to go over a few things about referencing. So the first thing that you want to absolutely make sure that you do when you are referencing stuff is go through and set your project. So I'm going to go through and just grab this random new folder here, and I'm going to set my project. And for the record, you don't need any, so I'm just going to do create default workspace. You don't actually need any of the like scenes folders or anything like that by default in your scene. You can manually add those later, or if Maya needs something like a cache folder or whatever, it'll just be like, I'm gonna make one. Alright, so I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna save this file, and I'm gonna call it sphere. Alright, and I'm gonna, actually, sorry, I should, yeah, I know you can't see it. Alright. Okay, whatever. So I've saved this file, called it sphere. We're gonna go ahead and pretend that this is a character that we are working on, but also we're gonna go through and then use that in another file at the same time, like for animating. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new file. And referencing stuff is pretty much the same process as importing. You just go to File, and instead of doing Import, you do Create Reference. So there's a few settings in here. None of them, honestly, are like super crazy need to mess with. But I usually turn off this use namespaces. Basically what this does is it will append whatever your file name is into the all of the referenced objects or whatever in your scene. I don't do that usually, personal preference, but like I just have really long file names and I don't like them in my outliner, so I'm just going to say like beans. So now it's going to, instead of using the file name, I'm just going to type in beans instead. I'm going to go ahead and do reference and find this sphere.ma that I've just saved. Because I didn't make a scenes folder, it's just sort of floating there, but you can see that now we have our sphere in the scene. It does, so again, and this is like that string, this beans, it's anything in this file is going to have that little beans next to it, or the file name, or, you know, whatever you choose to put there. And you can tell the stuff that's referenced because it has this little itty-bitty diamond next to the icon for the geometry. So you can go ahead, I'm going to like move this around a little bit, just set some random keyframes so you can just sort of see what's happening, I guess, with this. And I'm going to go ahead and be like, cool, that's, you know, super fantastic animation right here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'll call it animation. Cool. And let's say, like I said, imagine the sphere is a character that we're still working on. So I'm going to go back in, pop back into the sphere file. And this is the beauty of referencing. So I can add a bunch of random extra stuff to this scene. Let's get some polyhedral solids in there because, gosh darn it, I love icosahedrons. And I'm also just going to go ahead and assign this a new material. I'll just make it a random blend because I can, and I will make it some fuchsia. Okay, black works too. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this. And then I'm going, actually, and I'm going to do something weird to the sphere as well. I'm gonna just sort of extrude some random faces out of this thing. It's going to be great. Cool. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back into my animation file. And you should then see silence. So again, we have the new texture on the sphere, all the weird changes I made to it, and the extra nonsense that I put in the scene. It's gone ahead and appended the beans onto all of those names, and you can again see those little diamonds there. So I'm also free to go in, like I can add stuff into the scene without any issues. And you can have as many references as you want. I think that's the basic stuff about referencing. You can also assign new textures to this, right? So like I could go in and put, say, a Lambert on this that is green, and that is just going to be now green. Like it's not going to, if you can change the textures. I'm actually curious, I've never tried. Okay, apparently you can extend geometry. I don't necessarily recommend doing that. But you can, you know, modify all the textures and stuff. I do recommend building everything in the original scene. So there's a few things that can go wrong with referencing. So I'm going to pop into wherever the heck I put this. I honestly have no idea. Great. And I'm going to rename this sphere file. So I'm going to call it sphere2. And I'm going to go ahead and, let me actually save this file again. I'm going to go ahead and just reopen this file. And you can see that it's like, wait, we can't find this file. We can't find sphere.ma because I've renamed sphere.ma. So referencing really cares about naming stuff, location of files, all of that stuff. So what you can do is you can ignore the reference. It's basically going to temporarily, like I believe that'll save the data from the reference, but just not pull in the file stuff, like the sphere and all the icosahedron stuff. You can skip it. I'm fairly certain that will largely just ignore it entirely. You can browse for another file. So in this case, if I do need to rename something, I could call this sphere 2. Go ahead and reload that, and then it's going to pull all the stuff from sphere 2 in. You can also switch that to an entirely different file. One thing to be aware of, though, is if you have done a bunch of animation on stuff from this scene, and you break the reference somehow, either by choosing a new file or like ignoring it or whatever, that animation is gone. So do be aware of that. But again, that's just sort of the sort of basic overview of referencing. There is also, if you go to File Reference Editor, you can see all of the different little references and stuff that you have here if you need to just like double check what the files are for some reason, or like there's certain settings and stuff that you can like kind of change. Oh, shush. Right, okay, so in that case, if you click on this, it'll like turn the reference off temporarily and then allow you to, you know, browse or skip or ignore. I can also retry, but it's still looking for sphere.ma. But yeah, so that's all right. So just for, oh god, that's really annoying. All right, so just for grins, if you realize you changed your file name, as long as you haven't broken the reference itself, so help me. As long as you haven't like broken the reference itself or like deleted the reference, you should be able to go back in. Since I renamed the file, I'm going to retry this, and then it's going to be like, cool, here's your stuff again. So you can go ahead and apparently there's like a bunch of different stuff, right? So there's options for like reloading. You can delete references up here if you need to. So in this case, again, I could remove that reference. Again, this is if you undo this, you cannot get any of the animations back. Obviously, you can redo the reference, but if you've modified it in any way, you're going to have to redo all that. So that is basically referencing in a nutshell. It's really handy for stuff like rigging. If you need to, you know, make changes to your rig because something's broken, you can do that in a rig file. I'm going to go ahead and talk about sort of some recommended ways to control your referencing, as well as like the minimum stuff that you would want to have for upcoming assignments. Later videos.